Following the release of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, and don't worry, that piece of shit will get its time, Warner Brothers planned to release a solo film based around Ben Affleck's take on the Caped Crusader, with the actor writing, directing, and starring in the film himself. The movie would have reportedly taken inspiration from both the Nightfall storyline in the comics and the Arkham video games, and would have featured Deathstroke as the main villain, portrayed by Joe Manganiello, whilst also exploring the death of Robin, which was hinted at in BVS and Suicide Squad.
Shit.
However, in January 2017, Affleck announced that he was stepping down from the director's chair in order to concentrate on portraying Batman, stating that he would much rather the film be directed by a filmmaker who was passionate about the source material. Several directors were considered to replace him, including Ridley Scott, Gavin O'Connor, Matt Ross, George Miller, Denis Villeneuve, and Fede Alvarez, before Matt Reeves was chosen. Reeves, a longtime Batman fan, read Affleck's script, and though he liked it, it wasn't the kind of movie he was interested in making, so he rewrote much of it to his own liking.
That's interesting.
Initially, Reeves fully intended to keep the movie connected within the DCEU, but soon decided that the film should be about Batman and the start of his vigilante career, with plans to recast the character with a younger actor. So, just if you're keeping score at home, DC decided to bring Superman back, and then in an attempt to compete with Marvel, threw all of the characters together in one film with no build-up whatsoever to reboot Batman randomly, and then decided, shit, let's reboot him again at the same time as the previous adaptation is still continuing. This studio's a fucking mess.
Oh, this guy's hilarious.
In the end, due to a combination of a recent divorce, emerging alcohol problems, and his miserable experience making Justice League, Ben Affleck officially announced that his version of Batman was no more in 2019. With the film officially his, Reeves ditched Affleck's script entirely and started from scratch, wanting the movie to be completely disconnected from the DCEU and taking it back to the root of the comics, citing the storylines Year One, No Man's Land, Hush, and The Long Halloween as influences. The grimy look of Gotham City also drew inspiration from new Hollywood cinema such as Taxi Driver, The French Connection, Chinatown, and All the President's Men, with Batman and Catwoman's dynamic mirroring that of Donald Sutherland and Jane Fonda's characters in Clute. Someone remembered Clute?
I know what you're talking about, pal.
Furthermore, Reeves wanted his version of Batman to be vastly different to previous iterations. Firstly, he wanted the movie to lean more into the detective aspect of the character, with Batman searching for clues and analysing evidence in order to catch the villain, thereby making it more like a film noir. He also wanted Bruce Wayne to be more of a social recluse, rather than the spoiled playboy of the previous movies, calling his version of the character a mix of Michael Corleone and Kurt Cobain. When choosing who would replace Affleck as the Dark Knight, Nicholas Hoult, Armie Hammer, and Aaron Taylor Johnson all auditioned. But Reeves had written the role specifically with Robert Pattinson in mind after seeing his performance in the movie Good Time, but he had no expectation that he would actually be interested. However, Pattinson, also a huge Batman fan, jumped at the chance to audition, and his casting was officially announced in May 2019. However, like all the best casting decisions, Pattinson's was met with huge backlash, and a petition was even started to have him removed from the role. I mean, to be fair, they kinda have a point. How the fuck is a sparkly gay vampire from Twilight gonna play Batman?
They think I'm hiding in the shadows.
Well, shit.
Oh shit, it is. Look at that.
But if you want an amusing story, Pattinson's screen test took place while he was filming Tenet for Christopher Nolan. But due to the secrecy of the audition process, he had to lie and said that he had a family emergency. At which Nolan said, "You're doing the Batman audition, aren't you?" When Pattinson eventually won the role, Nolan was the first to congratulate him, even though Pattinson hadn't yet told anyone that he got the part.
What?
For the role of Catwoman, Zazie Beetz, Alicia Vikander, Ana de Armas, Ella Balinski, Isa Gonzalez, Hannah John Kamen, and Natalie Emmanuel were considered before selecting Zoe Kravitz. Kravitz was hesitant at first, having already played a supervillain in X-Men First Class. But after a meeting with Reeves, she agreed to take part, and not long after, Jeffrey Wright was confirmed to play Commissioner Gordon. A black Catwoman and a black Commissioner Gordon? Oh my god, this is outrageous! Cancel them! You cancel them! We must protect the children! When will this woke culture end? Even though Catwoman had been black previously. Twice. But that won't stop them! Hashtag not my Batman!
The hell is that?
Jonah Hill was approached for the role of the Penguin, but he exited negotiations after the filmmakers refused to let him play the Riddler instead, with Colin Farrell taking over the former role and Paul Dano taking over the latter. Reeves said that this version of the Riddler was primarily influenced by the Zodiac Killer, and Dano prepared for the part by reading up on old serial killer cases. However, this disturbed him so much that he made a point to do it in public places rather than at home where he was alone with his thoughts and fears. Yeah, because we saw how well that worked out for Heath Ledger.
What kind of demented son of a bitch does this to a person?
Filming began in January 2020 in Liverpool and wrapped the following March, and The Batman was released on March the 4th, 2022. And to nobody's surprise, it was a smash hit, pulling in $771 million worldwide and receiving glowing reviews for its performances, direction, and cinematography. The film's success was so great that Warner Brothers immediately greenlit a bunch of TV series based around the Penguin, Arkham Asylum, and the GCPD, though only the first managed to get off the ground, as well as 2 direct sequels to the film, the first of which is set for release in 2025. Now, admittedly, it does clearly take some inspiration from the Nolan films with its dark tone, so I'm very thankful they didn't tell Batman's origin story again, even if it looks like Michael Myers is stalking people at points. But what the hell is this noise when the guy attacks? It's alright, apparently he's Darth Vader. Although I'm not taking masks like this seriously. Straight off the bat, Robert Pattinson is actually terrific in this role. There's a lot of really well written dialogue which he delivers perfectly.
But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning.
What are you hiding? Are you just hideously scarred?
Yeah. The city's angry. Scarred. Like me.
He brings a lot to the character, including Batman completely losing it in the train station fight, which he improvised to show how unhinged this version was. Speaking of which, really cool line!
I'm vengeance.
And it's inspired by Batman the Animated Series, but the thing is, throughout the rest of the movie, he keeps referring to himself, or others refer to him as Vengeance, as if it's his fucking name!
Come on, Vengeance. Come on, Vengeance.
I'm vengeance.
No, I'm Vengeance. A lot of the time, I completely forget that it's Edward from Twilight. He just completely disappears into the role. Batman's introduction in the film is also pretty tight, but I mean, his dialogue suggests that he's been Batman for a while.
We have a signal now.
But yet, when he confronts these guys, they clearly react like they've never seen or heard of this giant man in a batsuit before.
The hell are you supposed to be?
Now, the movie does make a lot of changes of what we've already seen and what we're used to, but a lot of it I'm actually on board with. First off, as much as I do like Batman Begins, it is nice to see a full-on choreographed fight scene without a million cuts. As explained, it worked for that film's style, but here it's just nice to actually watch the action unfold in detail. Some viewers criticise Pattinson's Bruce Wayne for being a recluse instead of a playboy, but I actually love this change. Now, this was done before in Tim Burton's Batman, and in the comics before the character of Alfred was introduced. They even touch upon it slightly in The Dark Knight Rises, but not to this extent. It's completely different. He's entirely traumatized and haunted by his parents' death. In fact, it doesn't even feel like he's actually making a difference because the criminals he captures just get released a few years later anyway.
Murder, robberies, assault. 2 years later, they're all up.
So it makes sense for him to be a completely disheveled mess. With Keaton and Bale, sure, I felt their pain, but there were plenty of scenes where they chilled out and had a laugh and seemed normal. Whereas here, you can see that it's completely engulfed the man's entire life. He doesn't go out. He's a fucking mess. He doesn't even care what happens to him. He thrusts himself into danger without a second thought. No consideration for his own well-being. Everyone freaks out when he's seen in public. It's that rare. They try talking to him, but he's completely withdrawn from society. And there's some really subtle moments where he just notices a child grieving at a funeral and they exchange a look as he relates to him right before he saves the kid from Paul Walker going for a drive. There is a creepy moment where this Coulson fella has a bomb around his neck and his phone rings, but Bruce barely reacts because he doesn't give a shit if he lives or dies anymore.
I'm not afraid to die.
A gun is even pointed at him and he still doesn't care. I think this character change is a damn good one, and I'd actually say that this interpretation of Bruce Wayne is better than any other version thus far.
Jesus.
He also looks very imposing as Batman and gives a solid performance there as well. They still have him actually be surrounded by bats, but at least here he's actually in a cave and isn't using them as a fucking weapon and pets like Bale. Colin Farrell's performance as the Penguin is unreal. It looks and sounds nothing like him. He's completely unrecognizable. Apparently they had to put him in a fat suit and they caked him with makeup and it's insane. What? He wasn't actually fat? This is outrageous. When will the madness end?
You always just a gimp in an empty suit.
I mean, you're not wrong. I do like the change of style to make it more of a detective film. Rather than Batman just happening to know absolutely everything, we see him working out the riddles and putting the clues together, which is quite cool. There's actually a deleted scene which shows Batman visiting the Joker in prison seeking help on profiling the Riddler, which was an obvious homage to Manhunter and The Silence of the Lambs. Matt Reeves stated that he deliberately left this scene out because it tells the viewer exactly what motivation the Riddler is acting on, which he wanted to keep vague until the third act. Speaking of which, the Riddler is quite an interesting one. I mean, first of all, you can clearly see that he was inspired by the Zodiac Killer.
This is the Riddler speaking.
And it is a slight rip-off of the Joker scene in The Dark Knight. But other than that, Riddler is truly demented in this version. He live streams torture on the world's worst news station. Literally, they just casually show any recording ever. Thank you for joining us here at the BBC. This just in, Ted Bundy has recently sent us a recording of him torturing and raping and murdering one of his victims. Take a look. My issue is, I'm not massively familiar with the comics, but he doesn't really come across as the Riddler in this. He's more of a generic serial killer. The riddles and cryptographs are new and everything, and I guess they're kinda cool, but at first it's pretty standard. But sometimes he acts more like the Joker than the Riddler.
Wayne turned to longtime secret associate Carmine Falcone and had him murdered.
But no, he is the Riddler, look!
Riddle me this.
See? Although they update it by having him use the internet to spread his fear, which is quite interesting. He's creepy and everything, but bear in mind we've not actually seen a true Riddler's backstory on the big screen yet. I understand not showing Bruce's again, but seeing Riddler's could have been very interesting. But don't get me wrong, Dano as the Riddler is incredible and so chilling.
Well, a week later he was dead and everybody just forgot about us. All they could talk about was poor Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne, the orphan.
It turns out the Riddler is also an orphan, so he was almost hoping Batman would relate to him and show some empathy. It didn't work.
Tomorrow's election day.
But then, why even wear the mask if you're not even going to hide your voice anymore? Idiot. He's portrayed as a nerdy kid, and they do give some quite clever social commentary on serial killers desperate to be remembered.
I've been invisible my whole life.
I guess I won't be anymore, will I?
Catwoman is alright, except for some really lame dialogue.
You got a lot of cats.
What, do you live in a cave?
Subtle. The performance is decent, there's just nothing major to write home about. But she does sometimes have some nice lines.
Don't throw your life away.
Don't worry, honey. I got 9 of them.
To be fair, the relationship between her and Batman is built up quite well, and unlike before, she doesn't actually know who he is, which is nice. Good to see they're still using the impossible technology that Nolan invented for us though. The main issue I have with the film, however, is shockingly the damn runtime. It's nearly 3 hours long, and boy, it didn't need to be. You know, Hollywood, you are allowed to make a superhero movie that isn't 3 hours long. The subplots and side characters just aren't nearly as interesting as previous movies, so they struggle to carry the film for this amount of time. The majority of the movie is them trying to find out who a double agent is. Well, it's obviously Falcone, isn't it? I mean, the problem with adapting this many Batman films is we know who the bad guys are. It's Falcone!
Falcone is the rat.
In fact, there's also a riddle regarding a rat with wings. Well, it's a bat, isn't it? It's just a bat. It's obviously a bat!
A rat with wings. You know what that sounds like to me? A friggin' bat!
Why does this movie make the most obvious shit sound like the biggest revelation of the century?
World's greatest detectives!
And the bomb scene with the guy trying to negotiate drags on for way too long. It's just boring. The film has some great ideas, but it's so needlessly long that when it drags, it fucking drags. There's a scene where Batman explodes and, yeah, apparently nobody tries to unmask him. I mean, they do eventually, but they take forever now. I call bullshit. There are some weird angles of Batman ziplining to escape the cops, and it looks so cheesy. The wide shots look like arse too, which is a shame, because otherwise, the film is shot incredibly well, and the cinematography is outstanding. It looks amazing for the most part. And at least this time, the Batmobile is an actual Batmobile and not a tank. But I'm not sure if this is supposed to be funny. But it is.
Buck put out an APB on you. You really think he's in on this?
I don't trust any of them. Do you?
I only trust you.
Why? He's Batman! He's a masked vigilante! We've not seen anything in this movie to suggest why you would randomly trust him over your friends and colleagues. Although, as cool as this shot is, it's completely ruined with... peekaboo! Another infuriating moment is that Alfred gets blown up. Well, shit! The first ever movie to kill off Alfred, and he survived. Fucking blow me! Why do movies always do these fake out deaths? Have some balls! You could have been the first ever movie to actually kill off one of the most beloved characters in history. Pussies. How does he even survive anyway? Man done blew up. Is he Sam Loomis now? Robert Pattinson is looking for a good Twilight script. He'll be there a while. He ends up getting electrocuted and falling into some water. Whoa, shit, that's how most supervillains are formed these days.
Gotta be careful where you fall.
Selena. Take care of yourself.
Go to Marvel, you'd be better off. The Batman is pretty damn good, but it's way too long. It's not as good as the Dark Knight trilogy, but it's probably better than the Burton ones. They were able to keep my interest throughout with constant incredible performances and interesting subplots, but it also drags a lot at points. I love what they did with Bruce, and the Riddler is a great performance. It's a hit and miss at times, but it's still a damn good film. I guess it all just depends on your own personal preference. Yeah, now just the DCEU. Okay.